Virtual summits are the most powerful online marketing tool available to grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and create an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. If you are ready to take your summit to the next level, then tune into the Virtual Summit Podcast with Dr. Mark T. Wade.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software and creator of the One Day Summit Formula. And I'm on a mission to help you, the summit host, get your summit out to the world in a powerful and impactful way. So let's get started. Do you remember the phones in your home that were on the wall with the rotating dial pad? Did you know those phones are the reason we have virtual summits right now? And that a high value, low risk opportunity is always the best way to go? I'll explain this and more in today's episode on the Virtual Summit Podcast. Hi, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of the Virtual Summit Software, creator of the One Day Summit Formula, and your host on the Virtual Summit Podcast. I am super excited for today's episode where we're going to be diving into some of the fundamentals of a virtual summit. So this is going to be a pretty important episode because we're going to be covering some of the main aspects of summits, clarifying some probably common questions or even some common mistakes or having non-clarity on it. But I would like to say, make sure that you check out, if you have not already, episode 1 on getting started. It's super important. I would go over there if you haven't listened to episode 1 yet. Head over, listen to episode 1, and then come back here and get started on this episode. So first off, what is a virtual summit? A virtual summit, first off, is a collaborative marketing strategy. So this creates collaboration between industry experts to come together to solve a problem for the audience by sharing their insights. Now, it's an online event. It's commonly or can be often confused with a in-person summit. This is actually an online or a virtual summit, so it's all done online. They were originally called telesummits, and then they were branded over into virtual summits, sometimes also online summits, and sometimes just called summits. Now, like an online conference where attendees can register, or like a normal conference where attendees can register and access a variety of presentations or interviews from a multitude of experts over a specified period of time, it's all online virtually. So think of a series of webinars or master classes and interviews all scheduled together, providing value on a specific topic from industry experts who have the knowledge and information on that topic. So this is one of the most powerful marketing strategies available for entrepreneurs. Virtual summits are to grow their list, launch a platform, make more money, grow their authority, and make an impact in the world, which that's my favorite one right there, making an impact in the world. Now, a great summit can attract tens of thousands of qualified and engaged leads and generate tens of thousands of dollars in a single event, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And of course, generating even more of that from post-summit promotions. So let's look at an example, essentially, of a summit. Maybe you're sitting there thinking, okay, masterclass, online, virtual conference. Like, Mark, walk me through this. So an entrepreneur, let's look at it from, I'm going to walk you through each step of this with a virtual summit. An entrepreneur will decide he or she wants to make an impact in the world and grow their business quickly. So they're going to be looking for options. They're going to think, okay, I got a webinar. I can do like a funnel of some sort started with a lead magnet, or I can do a virtual summit. So then they'll decide, after they decide to move forward with a virtual summit, they need to decide on a specific problem to target and then how to solve that problem. And this specific problem needs to be an acute problem that your audience is searching for. So you need to know who your audience is as well. So the avatar. They'll reach out to a variety. So the summit host will reach out to a variety of industry and niche experts who can talk on the solutions to these problems or this problem. And they'll either do a pre-recorded interview or presentation. Occasionally these are done live, but most often it's pre-recorded, and those will be used on the virtual summit. Then they'll pick a date and time for the summit to start, and then they'll advertise the summit to the audience to generate registrants. Now, speakers and affiliates will hopefully help promote the summit, which will bring even more registrants or attendees to the virtual summit. And then attendees sign up, typically for free, and they gain access to the summit presentation when the summit starts. So, if you're advertising this 2 to 4 weeks out, obviously the summit's not available yet. So people register. You'll have an email sequence, a communication sequence that'll continue that relationship with these people, building more relationship up until the summit starts. Once the summit starts, once the summit access is opened, or once it starts, the access is then open, and it'll allow the attendees to access those presentations. Now, the thing to clarify with this is if you're doing a multi-day summit, so you may have anywhere from 3 to 14 different days, they don't get to access all of those. Each day, you will have set speakers designated for that day. So as that day arrives, let's say it starts on Thursday. So as Thursday arrives, Thursday's open, and those speakers who are speaking on Thursday will be able to be accessed by the attendees. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and ongoing, those are not available for access yet. Then when at the end of the day, let's say at the end of Thursday's speaker sessions are going to be locked, and then the next day, so Friday's sessions will be released or become available. And that will happen throughout the entire summit. So this will continue to go all the way up until the end of the summit. And then once the summit is over, it'll be closed and locked down. And then the attendees won't have any access to those previous speaker sessions. Now, the attendees will get the option to purchase ongoing access to the summit presentations for a fee. This is the most common way people monetize their summit. So it's free to attend, free to register, free to go through it. But if you want to come back and watch a previous day, or you want to have access to all of them, or you just know you're not going to be available for those presentations, you can purchase access to them once it's ended. Now let's have a quick word from our sponsor.
Virtual Summit's software makes hosting a summit easier than ever. The only software in the world designed specifically for hosting a summit lets you set up a summit in a matter of hours with no tech skill or team needed. You can try out the Virtual Summit's software free at virtualsummits.com. But hurry, this is a limited offer.
So typically additional bonuses or incentives are added to increase the value of that. Some of those can come from the speakers. Some of those come from the hosts. So this is the basic overview of a summit. Like most summits today, additionally, so this is the basic overview. This is how a summit runs. There's varieties and variations of this. Most summits today actually take some kind of creative spin or angle to make them slightly different or more appealing than previous summits. But that's the outline. That's what a virtual summit is and how it runs. Now, this part I want to talk about is kind of exciting. I mean, it was exciting to me, but I went through and did some research on the history or background of summits. So, I spend a lot of time, like summits are essentially, my bread and butter. It was kind of cool to go back and look at the history of these. So like virtual summits actually stem, and this is going to relate back to that first statement I was talking about. Virtual summits actually stem from the original creation of the teleseminars back in the 1990s. So participants would have to get information for a teleseminar. It's typically on either somebody's website, or it was sent to them in an email. They would have a number they call in and an access code, and then they would sit on the telephone and listen to this teleseminar, somebody presenting information. Now, typically in the form of a teleseminar, there would be a format of either an interview or a presentation or lecture, and it would just be kind of a one-off presentation. Now, when there were more than one teleseminars happening over the course of multiple days, they would refer to this as a telesummit. Now, here's a really cool piece of history right here. The first telesummit was termed by Milana Leshinsky in 2005, who conducted the very first telesummit, and it was the coaching telesummit. So the first telesummit, which was a stream of teleseminars put together, happened in 2005, by Milana. So that's a really cool piece of history. So from 90s all the way up to 2005, it was just these kind of one-off teleseminars. And then Milana came and decided to do a telesummit and had multiple speakers over a course of several days on her coaching telesummit. Now today, telesummits have actually evolved into virtual summits, which incorporate online live streaming video, pre-recorded video sessions, webinars, social media, to engage and interact with the audience. Now, just to look at kind of the timeline. So in the 90s, we started the teleseminars. January 2005, Milana did the first coaching telesummit. So we had the first telesummit. And then in June 17, 2009, and so I've done some research on this. Now, there might be other ones that have happened. And if you know of any other information over this timeline that I've missed, please reach out to me at podcast@virtualsummits.com and let me know, because I would love to know about other telesummits and then virtual summits that ended up happening. But what I could find through my research is the first still available right now virtual summit, where they changed it from telesummit to a virtual summit, happened in June 2009. So we had the Virtual Learning Summit by IIL Global Companies in June 17, 2009. And then September 27th in 2009, we had the Virtual Retail Summit. And so we can start to see this frequency picking up. Now we had, over the course of 2005 through 2009, there was more and more and more telesummits that were happening. As technology increased and availability became easier for other people to be able to do this, we started to have more people doing it. So June of 2009, we started to see this increase. Now we had a virtual summit, and then we started to see the increase of these virtual summits. March 21st, 2010, Howard Lichman actually wrote an article called Telepresence, Virtual Conferences in the Future of Online Events. So virtual summits and online events started to get more exposure, more attention. People started writing about it. In May 26th of 2010, there was a Women's Leadership Exchange Virtual Summit. And then November 30th, 2010, we had the Landing Page Success Summit by Ben Jessen and Dr. Carl Blank. So we can see we're starting to have more and more summits occurring, but still not a lot of them. In the overall scheme of things, there was still maybe, well under 100 virtual summits happening at this point. And then March 18, 2011, there was another article written by Dr. Jamie Wilson that said 20 reasons why virtual conferences are the future. And then, of course, in 2017, we had the invention of the One-Day Summit by Dr. Mark T. Wade. So we can kind of see the evolution of how this happened. And I'd also say in 2015 is when we started to have multiple virtual summits happening. Over the course of that year, there was many happening. We started having people, coaches starting to teach the strategy. And then by 2016, especially 2017, we started having hundreds of virtual summits. And then now at this point, there's been thousands and thousands and thousands of virtual summits that have actually happened. So we can kind of see that evolution. And a lot of that happened because of awareness, for one, but also technology being more easy for people to be able to create this. Obviously, back in 2005, you had to have a developer. The website really looked old school. But as technology, for example, even WordPress, as that started to become more available, more people able to do coding, we actually had more of these happen. Then, of course, now that we have virtual summit software, it makes it so easy that anybody can host a summit and everyone can host it. So we have summits happening all the time, which is a great thing because that means there's more impact and change happening in the world. So let's talk now. We've kind of talked about the history of summits, and we've seen the evolution of these, and we've got some more kind of cool stuff to talk about here. Let's look at what are the different types, the original. So originally we had the telesummits, as we talked about. So telesummits, obviously tele stands for telephone. So attendees would get an email, or they'd find it on a website with a phone number, a registration code, and then they call in to listen to a series of teachings. This was all done on the phone. Now, as it evolved, for example, as cell phones became available, people would still be on the phone, but then this was the evolution of where they could actually start to text their questions in, and this started to create the live chat, the live back and forth. It happened through text messages. which is really cool to see how that evolution continued as well. And then there was the hybrid summits, which included a live in-person component with a virtual streaming component as well. And this is still, hybrid summits are still happening as well. But now we have the multi-day. So we're looking at what are the different types of summits. So there's still telesummits, although not very many of them. We have hybrid summits happening. And of course, now we have the multi-day virtual summit, which typically consists of 20 to 80 speakers over the course of 3 to 14 days with one main theme, and then underlying specific topics or categories in which the speakers would be organized under. So let me just restate that. So there's one main theme, but underneath that theme, there's going to be some specific categories set out that speakers are going to fall under that. So it typically also, just some background on a multi-day summit, recommended a minimum of 90 days is usually required to put together a multi-day summit. With the most common and successful summits being anywhere from 6 to 12 months to prepare and create. So if you're doing your first multi-day summit, don't go for 90 days. You're going to, at least if you're wanting a pretty successful summit. So obviously this depends on your objective and goals, but if you're wanting to do tens of thousands of leads and make $100,000, you're going to want a lot of good preparation. So you're looking at a 6 to 12 month prep. Now, if you've done a lot of summits before, you know how to do it. You've got a lot of connections. You got a dev team, or you're using Virtual Summit software and you just want to throw it together, then you could probably do that in 90 days. Now, another type of summit is the one-day summit. So one-day summit consists of typically 5 to 16 speakers who teach a specific solution to one specific problem being addressed. So the difference here, multi-day virtual summit is one theme with a bunch of different topics or categories. A one-day summit has one specific topic that the speakers are all solving that problem. So 5 to 16 speakers. Now it's typically much shorter, and it's easier to consume for the audience and much easier to be created by the host. So the really cool thing with this is, for a host, it's much easier to be able to build this out and set this up. There's a lot less moving parts. It's a lot less difficult. You're tapping a lot less resources and having to contact a lot less speakers. Additionally, from the attendee side, the reason one-day summits have been so popular is because of attention span. Most attendees, the world today in general, attention spans are decreasing dramatically. So most people don't have the attention span to do 14 days of 80 speakers. They just don't complete it. But what they can do is one day of 6 speakers. Now, when we say a one-day summit, it doesn't mean that it's an entire day. It just means they have one day to consume it. Your one-day summit may be 2 hours, it may be 6 hours, it may be 8 hours, but they just have one day to consume it in. So typically, a one-day summit can be created in 30 to 60 days. So much, much quicker, especially with Virtual Summit software. These can be created very quickly. And then one of the other main differences, a one-day summit can actually be run without any speakers and just the host presenting the information, or you can have a hybrid version of this with the host and a few speakers. So there's a lot more flexibility and variety that can be done with a one-day summit. Obviously, a multi-day virtual summit, you would never do 8 days of just the host doing all the topics. But with a one-day summit, since it's just one day, the speaker could provide all of the solution. The host could provide all the solutions for that and do it without any speakers. So there's a lot more flexibility, variety, and variation that can happen with a one-day summit, also much quicker. And then, of course, so most multi-day summits and one-day summits are pre-recorded. There is a live streaming summit. Again, 99% of all summits are pre-recorded and then streamed over the course of a set period of time. However, there are a few summits that run live streaming. Now, these do have a pretty high engagement rate, but they run a very high risk of errors or complication happening. Like, what happens if a speaker doesn't show? What happens if your live streaming software has a glitch or an error? What happens if you lose internet? So there's a lot of high risk involved with that. So most summits actually incorporate some kind of chat either live chat or some kind of back and forth to provide a live feeling to them and help increase engagement. Now, a common question I get usually with summits is like, well, do you position them or do you say they're live? Now, it's always best to be ethical and transparent. Like, we don't ever say this is a live event. We can say this kicks off or this gets started around this date, because you have a set date or time that they actually start. So you position it as if it is an event that starts here and ends here, because that is true. You don't necessarily need to say that this is live. We're going to be going live at this time and then this, whatnot. So that's just a clarification there. So what are some of the benefits of running summits? Most common benefits, straightforward, are grow your email list, generate income, build authority. Those are the three most common. Now, leads, the reason leads, because you may be saying, well, I can generate leads with a lead magnet or some kind of ebook. Typically, these leads are much more engaged and much higher quality. This summit is also considered a self-liquidating offer, which means it actually pays for itself. So people, if you're running any kind of paid advertising or paid traffic to your summit, when people opt in for the summit, you're going to have a percentage of those that actually buy the prolong or lifetime access, if you will. Those sales actually end up paying for your ad spend. So a self-liquidating offer means that this offer actually pays for itself. Whatever ad spend you put into it, you recoup on the summit sales. Additional benefits are you actually have a platform. So this is part of that authority, is now you have a platform. You are the host of this summit, which sounds prestigious and gives you something of value. A lot of speakers, influencers, etc., they're looking to speak on people's platforms. And now that you have a platform, you have something of value. I think this would be a great opportunity to give a shout out to our sponsor, Virtual Summit Software.
Be sure to check out the speaker management tool inside your Virtual Summit software, which lets you quickly and easily recruit and manage your speakers on your virtual summit, literally eliminating hundreds of hours of work. Get more information at virtualsummit.com.
There's also benefits are expert leverage. You get to leverage the expertise, the credibility, the relationship, the trust factor of the other experts or speakers that are on your summit. Networking is a huge benefit to this. You get to network with those speakers. You spend time with them on the interview or on the presentation. You follow up with them. You've built a relationship with them. Also, relationships in solving a problem with your attendees. So from the attendee side, I always say to have a successful business, no matter what type of business it is, you need to solve a problem and build a relationship. Summits are one of the best ways to build a relationship because the attendees are spending an extended period of time with you, which gets them to feel like they have a relationship with you. And then it sets up a great opportunity for you to sell whatever your next promotion is. So you've created know, like, trust. Now when you go to offer them something after this, you have that relationship, so it creates even more opportunity to generate even more income. So what are the cons? Honestly, there's not a ton of cons, but there are a few. So, and this just depends on how you look at it. The cons to running a virtual summit, so they require some level of thought and skill to be done well. I mean, that should just go without saying. I don't really feel like that's a con, but I do need to highlight that here. You can't just jump in and go, I'm going to do a summit and just run through everything, rush through it, try to throw it together. I see this happen all the time, and people are highly disappointed with the outcomes of those type of summits. Not only your attendees, not only are the hosts disappointed, but the speakers are. Don't rush your summit. A summit does not need to take years, especially with virtual summit software, but don't rush your summit. Make sure you've put a high level of thought into it, and you should have some kind of idea of how to run these. Doesn't mean you have to have a coach or consultant, although those are beneficial. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have purchased a course teaching you this, although those are beneficial. But what you do need to do is take some time to educate yourself, participate on some summits, see how they're run, talk to people. This podcast right here is an excellent way to update your knowledge on the best way to do summits. So doing things like that are important to increase your skill level to make sure it's done well. Typically, summits require a level of participation from the speakers. So if that doesn't happen, it can yield lower results. So that's kind of, a con is, a negative aspect is this is not just dependent on you and your work ethic and your motivation. It is also to some level dependent on the level of participation of your speakers as far as how big and how great your summit's going to be. Now, this can be overcome by finding people that you have relationships with that want to promote you, building that relationship, giving value so it makes sense for those speakers to promote you. But that is something that needs to happen in order to have the high, depending on your goals. If you want big goals, you are going to need participation from your speakers and your affiliates. Additionally, there can be a large amount of influx of email communication that happens during a summit with the attendees. So if you do a great job and you have an influx of, you do get 10,000 or 20,000 leads. I mean, imagine if one link goes wrong. Like if you try to build out your summit yourself, or you're piecing it together with some kind of funnel software or something like that, and one link goes wrong and you got 25,000 people attending your summit, imagine the amount of emails that can come in with that. Another reason why we highly recommend Virtual Summit software is it removes those kind of problems or complications. But regardless, nonetheless, you're still going to have email communication if you're not prepared for that level. I mean, this is like a bad problem. I mean, a good problem to have, I guess. Like if you have that many people on your summit that you're getting that many emails, it's kind of a good problem, but you do need to be prepared to handle that kind of influx of communication. Additionally, as I just mentioned, there can be tech difficulties. I remember the first several summits I ran where I built them out on WordPress, and you have to like turn links on and turn them off, remove things like that. There's always tech difficulties. So links not working, videos not playing, all of these type of little tech issues that can happen will go wrong essentially on a virtual summit. So you got to be prepared for that. And it feels very high stress. So that would be another negative. It's really high stress because you got all this momentum going into this one event. And then if one thing goes wrong, it can feel like the end of the world. It's not. After you get through it and the stress drops, you realize it's not the end of the world. But it can feel like that. And if you're trying to build this out or you're paying somebody else to build it out for you, there can be a lot of issues. People are human. They can miss things. Again, links not working, videos not, videos being duplicated or whatnot. There's a lot of tech aspects that go into a summit, and it can be overwhelming. So another negative with that is beyond tech difficulties. If you're trying to build it yourself, you're going to look at hundreds of hours to build this out. If you're paying somebody else to do it, you're looking at a pretty high ticket price there, tens of thousands of dollars to have somebody build out everything they need to do. So that can be a negative. Again, Virtual Summit software removes that as a negative, but for those of you out there that are going to try and go it your own or pay somebody else to do it, those are some of the negatives that you're going to find with that. And I mentioned the stress and difficulty. They can feel difficult and overwhelming, especially if you're doing it all by yourself. It is a lot of momentum in a one small period of time, and it can feel very high stress. And essentially, usually during that, you're only hearing the negatives from the email communication. You're not hearing all the time. You're not getting a bunch of this was amazing, this changed my life. Even though it's happening, most of the emails you're getting are the ones saying, I can't find my link. This video doesn't work, I can't find your emails, whatever. And so it can feel very high stress, but it's still worth it. And if you know about it, you can be prepared for it and handle it successfully. So overall, there's very few cons or negatives, very few negatives, and it's definitely not overwhelming amount of type of negatives. Even if your summit bombs, from a lead generation perspective, you now have a platform, a product, authority, and the knowledge of how to improve it. So, I've had summits that have bombed. I've had summits that have been huge successes, but just like everybody else, I've had summits that have bombed specifically because I didn't make them specific enough. I didn't know my avatar. The topic was too generic or too general is usually the number one reason why people's summits bomb. The second reason would be because you don't have support from your speakers and affiliates. But even the ones that bomb, look at it like this, even your summit that bombs, from a lead generation, let's say you only got 500 or 1,000 leads from it. and you spent money on it, let's say you spent a couple $1,000s on it, maybe you didn't recoup all of that, you still, at the end of the day, you now have a platform that you're the host of this summit. Nobody else has to know that it bombed. You also have a product, which means you can sell that summit, those collection of videos, those collections of teachings, ongoing. You can sell it as an individual product. You can give it away to your list as a flash sale. You can do it as an upsell on anything else you're selling. You can even give it to affiliates and allow them to sell it as a discount as an affiliate sale. So having a product and a platform is a tremendous value no matter what. And again, you can also repurpose all that content. You now have information or content for your podcast, for your YouTube video, for your blog. So no matter what, even summits that don't generate your goal from a lead gen perspective are still huge success. And you can't say the same from, like, for example, a webinar. If your webinar bombs, you're out that time, energy, and money. It's just that way. But with a summit, even if it bombs, you still have success. So you become the host of X Summit. You can sell it as a separate. Okay, so yeah, so we've kind of covered that. And then also from another aspect, you have relationships too with all those influencers that you can then turn around and leverage. You can reach back out to them to set up a partner webinar, or you can sell something from them of theirs to your list. You just really can create ongoing relationships with those influencers, and they know you and you're on their radar now, which is huge, which creates even more opportunities. So before Virtual Summit Software existed, just as a highlight here, for those of you out there that maybe this is your first summit, you're not going to know, like, just how I've gone through the history of summits. You're not going to know how it was for those of us that were doing summits back in 2015, 2016, like the amount of, time, energy, money that used to go into it, because now you have Virtual Summit Software, which, makes it much easier. I mean, most summits back in the day were very time consuming, very costly. They would require some decent level of initial cash deposit, which could be risky if the summit didn't perform, and you'd also be out hundreds of hours of work. But thankfully we have the Virtual Summit Software now, which has greatly reduced the risk of time, the time and the cost to almost nothing in comparison to how we used to have to do it. So that's out there for you summit hosts out there. You've got it much better, and that means you have no excuses to get out and make that impact in the world. So let's quickly talk about how summits are different from other marketing methods, because maybe you're saying, like, why? Like, why a summit over something else? So first off, summits are what we call high value, low risk. So let's talk about the other options first, and then we'll come back to that. So lead magnets are low risk, but they're also usually low value, meaning, there's not much risk involved. If I'm going to opt in for a lead magnet, I don't have to worry about having a high pressure kind of sales conversation. So it's really not much risk. There's nobody looking over me. There's nobody forcing me to do anything. I can put in an email and I get something back. Today, most people look at kind of like ebooks and those type of things as very low value, because there's so much information, there's so much content out there that ebooks are relatively considered low value. So what most people also do, which is why this can become a negative, is most people know that they don't have to give you the correct email. So they just put in a fake email. They get the ebook. The ones that are willing to do it, they put in a fake email, they get the ebooks, and then they go on their day, and you actually didn't even get you didn't get the subscriber, not alone a quality subscriber. Well, let's look at webinars. So webinars are what we consider high risk. Okay, they may be high value, but they're definitely high risk, because people know today that they're going to be sold on a webinar. It also takes a lot of their time. So they're like, what's the real benefit, or what's the value that I'm going to get from this? So high risk means if I opt in for this and I show up for it, I'm going to feel a lot of pressure, because you're going to try and convince me to buy something. That people know that's coming, and that's what webinars are considered. That's why they're used. That's people that are running webinars, that's the reason they're doing it. So high risk, and honestly, most webinars out there are not really high value. So people are like, this is like a lot of risk on my part of feeling pressured, of feeling, unsatisfied, and there's not a lot of value that comes out of it. So another negative with webinars is people typically don't show up. Show up rates on webinars are like 10, 15, 20%. I know some people are out there saying, oh, we get 40% or 50% show up rates, but they're probably lying, most likely. But even if they aren't, the rest of us, we're not getting those. I can tell you that. And if you're honest with yourself, you know that as well. So people are waiting for the replay, which is still not horrible, but you know it's not going to convert to do what you want it to do. So that's webinars. Now, funnels, which are not like a specific thing, it's more of a classification. And of course, funnels are important because this is the way we process people. But if you think of it like that, like we're literally processing people, and people don't want to be processed. They're a person. They have feelings. They want to be felt like they're cared for. And most funnels are high pressure, like a big hook, get them to opt in, and then quickly try and sell them something, sell them until they no longer want to have anything to do with you. That's just not, like we all have to have funnels, but in my opinion, that's not the number one focus we should be having, not if you want to grow a successful business. My opinion, and what most of the experts out there, solve a problem, build a relationship. You have to have a relationship with your audience if you want to have a successful business. And the best way of doing that is taking what's in their best interest and solving the problem. So now circling back to summits, virtual summits are one of the best ways to create a relationship with your audience. It increases engagement, which also increases the quality of your audience. Because there's low risk, so again, we said summits are high value, low risk, meaning there's no one there to pressure them. They opt in for it, and then it's not a sales call. It's not a consultation call. It's not a webinar. They know they're going to be getting a series of information that they can consume what they want as they want it. They don't have to consume all of it, but they have everything there that they want. And they know it's not like a sales pitch, like as in every masterclass or every presentation from your summit is you there trying to squeeze them into some kind of sale. So that makes it high value, low risk. Additionally, from that other standpoint is they're building a relationship with you because they're getting more time with you. They're getting to see you on video. You're giving them value. They're also getting expert leverage from the other speakers that they maybe already know or trust. So you leverage their trust and credibility, and you gain some of that for you. Now, because of this increases the quality of your audience. When you have a relationship with your audience, they're more likely, and by relationship, know, like, and trust, they're more likely going to do whatever you recommend, the more of what you're going to recommend in the future. Additionally, Summits offers insight from a variety of different experts on a single topic or idea. So your attendees can get all these different information in one place. You've made it easier for them. They don't have to go out and try and find this information, like 10 different pieces of information in different places. You've made it simple and easy and put it all together in one spot. Additionally, some of these experts, they wouldn't actually be able to get access to. So you're bringing them access to people that they normally wouldn't be able to get access to, especially for free. So that's really good. It provides an easy access or source for people on an interested topic, okay? So it's, again, typically pre-recorded, but it's still providing it in a way that they can consume it easy and simply. There's typically no hard selling or pitching. We offer free gifts. Speakers offer free gifts and things like that, but they don't feel pressured into it. And again, great way to build a relationship. So who typically hosts summits? Like, who are our summit hosts out there? If you're listening to this, you are probably our summit hosts. But summit hosts range across all industries and niches. Essentially, anyone looking to make an impact in the world and or generate some income and increase their email list. Right now, the health market and then the internet marketing spaces are the ones that have the most summits that are happening. Like, that's where summits are super hot right now. If you go in the health space, everybody who's an influencer in the health space is trying to run a summit in their niche or their industry, and they're crushing it there still. Like, I hear people say, summits are overdone, they don't work anymore. First off, that's completely false, completely incorrect. People who do summits poorly are not getting the results as the same as people who do summits well. So if anybody tells you that summits don't work anymore, you can look them in the face and say that's incorrect. You probably just didn't run it correctly. And that's okay. That's why again, with this podcast, the whole point is to help you, the summit host, increase your knowledge, your expertise, and your success on your summit. You can't run it correctly if you don't know how to run it correctly. So if you've run a summit before and you didn't get the results you were looking for, that's okay. But let's just let's be honest with ourselves and acknowledge we probably didn't do it correctly or at the quality or level that we should have to get the results we need. And there's a variety of different reasons why that probably happened, and we'll get into those in later episodes. But right now, health market is crushing it. Internet marketing space has been crushing it. But pretty much all other spaces, industries, and niches are completely open and have yet to been tapped. So if you're in any of those other spaces or niches, like hear this, you have a huge opportunity ahead of you because people, your attendees, your audience, your avatar, they haven't seen this before. This is going to look and sound like the coolest thing that they've ever seen, which is going to make your conversion rates so much higher. So again, before Virtual Summit Software, most summits unfortunately were just reserved for the influencers who either had a team to help them or they had large financial resources to pay people to either build it out or run it for them. But now, because of Virtual Summit Software, everyone has that opportunity to host a summit in a very short amount of time with no team and a minimal budget. So this makes it now all of us have that opportunity to go out and make an impact in the world. So we're getting close here to wrapping up this episode, but I want to talk about some common mistakes very quickly, because if you're thinking about running a summit, we'll get more in depth on these in future episodes, but just to briefly cover them here, some common mistakes are: one, by far not giving yourself enough time. Like probably the most common mistake I see is not getting your topic or theme correct, not narrowing it down enough, not making it sound sexy enough, not knowing the specific problem that your avatar really has. That's a huge problem, because if that doesn't happen, your conversions are going to be very low and you're not going to have a high qualified or engaged audience. Additionally, common mistakes, not getting your speakers engaged in supporting you. And this doesn't mean, like, you shouldn't just assume your speakers are going to support you in email. It's your responsibility to get them engaged, to create a relationship and make it of value for them. And again, we'll talk in future episodes on how you can do that. Other common mistakes is it's your first time doing a summit and you're going to try and build out a summit on your own without having any kind of help or any kind of software, or you're just going to go and do it on your own. Trust me, I can tell you, because I've run, over 25 summits, that the ones I ran on my own when I was just getting started were my worst summits. Now, I still had some success. Luckily, I have really great marketing mind, but the ones I ran by myself were by far the most problems or errors I had. And I'm not saying like necessarily having a coach or a consultant. Again, those are great, but just trying to build something out. Like, I'm a postural neurologist by trade, right? And I tried to build a summit tech-wise, having never run one again. So that's a common mistake. You try and build something out that you've never done before. You have this big event and everything hinders on the success of what you've built out. I highly recommend either hiring somebody else to do it, partnering with somebody who's already done them before, who can do that aspect of it, or of course, just use a Virtual Summit software, which makes it super simple, super easy. Now let's have a quick word from our sponsor.
With the Ever Summit feature inside the Virtual Summit software, you can rerun your summit as if it were live, ongoing forever with one click of a button. This now lets you continue to use your summit forever, bringing in qualified and engaged leads every month into your business. Get more information at virtualsummit.com.
Also, this is like a smaller thing, but it's huge. It has huge repercussions. It's just not being creative enough to stand out and generate interest around your summit. So, I'm going to constantly give you the fundamentals on how to build your summit. I'm going to give you tips, gems. Our interviewers, our guests on this podcast are going to give you some of their amazing tips and gems that are really going to help you on your summit. But you can't just do the basics. You really got to get creative. You got to make sure you stand out and generate interest around your summit. So why are summit hosts so important? Which means, why are you so important? And this is an important part of this, because you are important. Summit hosts are changing the world for the better. They're not just funnelers. They're not just funnel hackers who are trying to process people. And again, we all need funnels, but summit hosts are changing the world. And they're focused on that. They're creating impact. They're forward thinkers. They're action takers. They're the ones who stand up against adversity and fight for what they know is important. They take on seemingly insurmountable tasks and orchestrate a profound path, ensuring that the world continues to change for the better. You, the summit hosts, are so important. You provide those who are suffering with solutions from those with the answers in a way that allows them to obtain results and end their suffering. You are the ones who are making a difference in the world. You are creating impact. You are a summit hero, and I thank you for what you're doing. All right, summit hosts, as we round out this podcast, I have a request. I have an ask from you. Please, 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 I'm going to give you all my insights. I'm going to give you everything from my failures and my successes. I'm never going to hold anything back. I've got your best interest in mind. I'm also going to make sure that our guests that are on this podcast, they're not going to get away with their secrets. They're going to give you the things, their top secrets, their top insights. I'm going to squeeze it out of them so that you can ensure your summit is going to be the best summit you could possibly run. So what I'm going to ask from you in return, I'm going to give you everything I have, but I need your help. If you could please subscribe to this podcast and leave a 5-star review on it, that's going to greatly help me. That's going to allow me to reach more summit hosts, which is us as a collective going to increase the level of quality and success of summits across the board. So please subscribe to this and leave me a 5-star review. Then I'm going to ask, share this podcast with anyone you know who's done or wants to do a summit. That's why I'm doing this. I want to help as many summit hosts as possible. So subscribe, leave me a 5-star review, share this podcast with anyone you know who's done or wants to do a summit. That's all I'm asking. I'm going to continue to provide you this information for free, giving you my best insights. Just help me in that area. And additionally, if you want to get in touch with me, I know we've got people out there that want to get in touch, they have some feedback, and I'm always looking for feedback. So please get in touch with me and give me your feedback. If you have questions, you can send them to me. If I start to get enough questions, we'll do a special Q&A, a monthly episode where I'll address your specific questions. If you want to be a speaker or a guest on this podcast, reach out and let me know. And if you know someone you think I should interview, please put me in touch with them. You can do all of that at podcast@virtualsummits.com. Also, the show notes are going to be available over at podcast.virtualsummits.com. So you can check out all the guests we have, all the information, links, everything that we talk about in any of the episodes are going to be over on our show notes at podcast.virtualsummits.com. Again, if you want to reach me, you can send me an email over podcast@virtualsummits.com. And then I've got a bunch of free resources for you too. If you're looking for my one-day summit guide or my virtual summit framework or a plug-and-play strategy, or you're looking to get a free trial for the virtual summit software, go check out our resources again at podcast.virtualsummits.com/resources. Check that out. It's going to be there for you. And I want to end this episode by saying to you, the summit host, that I believe in you. You can do this. Summits are by far one of the most powerful ways to quickly grow your list, launch your platform, and make more money, even if you're just getting started, and create more impact. Don't get caught up in analysis paralysis because the world needs to hear your message, and there are people who are waiting for you to help them. So just get started. Imperfect action is always better than doing nothing. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on the Virtual Summit podcast. Head over to the show notes to check out all the links and resources from this episode, and be sure to grab your free trial of the Virtual Summit software.
Now, I want to end this episode by saying to all the summit hosts listening right now, I believe in you, and you can do this. Summits are by far one of the most powerful ways to quickly grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and most importantly, make an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. So don't get caught up in analysis paralysis because the world needs to hear your message, and there are people who are waiting for you to help them. So just get started because imperfect action is always better than no action. Thank you, and see you on the next episode.